My imagination is bigger than my calendar. The reason your to-do list is bigger than your calendar is the calendar is flat. We haven't had a new day or a new hour in 700 years. Your imagination, Kirk, what's possible is infinite.
How did you get into this career of writing? What was your goal career-wise?
Well, I was in corporate marketing for about 15 years with some of those companies you named in my intro, and I started to write a blog. I started a blog about the funny things that happen inside church. I'm a pastor's kid, so I had lots of material, and so I started this blog called Stuff Christians Like, about the funny things we do, things like wishing you had a shirt that said I direct deposit my tithe that you could wear on Sunday so people wouldn't judge you for not giving. Because they don't know that I give online. I don't. If I had a shirt that said I'm still down with the king, I just direct deposit, people wouldn't judge me when I hot potato the offering basket. So I wrote this blog about the silly things we do inside of faith, and then all of a sudden it took off, and I got to turn that into a book, and then I got to start helping companies with their stories, and then it just kind of grew from there. And so that's how I fell in love with the idea of sharing ideas with other people that can change their life.
And based on your bio, it looks like you've probably accomplished all of your goals and more. Is that true? Is that a fair statement? Are you the master
I feel like I'm just
accomplisher?
No, I'm just getting started. What I like to do, Kurt, is I find a problem I have, I try to fix it, and then I see if other people have it. So I started this book Finish because I'm a chronic starter and wanted to turn into a consistent finisher. So then I asked people all around the world, do you ever have trouble starting and finishing goals? And when you study it, 92% of all New Year's resolutions fail. 92%. You have a greater shot at getting into Juilliard to become a professional ballerina, which is an 8.6% acceptance rate, tiny dancer, than you do at finishing a goal. So I knew, wait a second, I've got something in my own life I want to work on, and the rest of the world needs a solution. What if I spend a few years researching that with a PhD named Mike Peasley so that we can come up with some simple things people can do to finish the goals they care about the most?
Man, you're describing my life. I've got these long to-do lists, and every time I keep checking stuff off, the list gets longer and longer. Eventually, I just want to tear the whole list up and throw it in the fireplace. I've got books that I want to read, and so now I'm reading them, but then I fall asleep because reading is a great sleep aid. And then I try to listen to them on tape while I'm jogging, and that's better, but it's still hard to finish all the books that I want to read. I've got a couple of your books right here that I would love to read, but unless you show me how I can accomplish my goal, I'm never going to get through them.
Well, I'm going to give you something that's going to set you up for freedom right now. I'm going to give you a really simple sentence. Here's all you need to know. My imagination is bigger than my calendar. The reason your to-do list is bigger than your calendar is the calendar is flat. We haven't had a new day or a new hour in 700 years. Your imagination, Kirk, what's possible is infinite. And then you combine it with your spouse's imagination and your kid's imagination and the producers at TBN's imagination and speaking events around the world. And all of a sudden you have this really massive to-do list. So set yourself up for some freedom. Don't feel shame that your list is too long and you never get it done. Say to yourself, that's a soundtrack. My imagination is bigger than my calendar. My imagination is bigger than my calendar. That's why that's happening. And once you can admit that, you can remove the guilt, the shame, the fear of not getting it all done and go, okay, now what can I get done? Knowing that I have this massive imagination, what can I actually do to get things done?
And then you're going to help us, hopefully a little bit here today, to learn the method to get some of those things done, how to know what's worth keeping on the list and what we need to get rid of or put on a different list for later. Jon, let's go back a little bit. You started a podcast called All It Takes Is a Goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you start the podcast? What are you hoping to accomplish with that?
Well, I wanted to have other people's stories. My story is really small. I'm one guy in one office. I wanted to be able to interview a single mom named Colleen Berry, who was a receptionist at a company and worked her way into being the CEO. That's a really interesting story that it's not my story. And there's going to be another single mom that can go, wow, there's opportunities with goals for me to change my life. That's interesting. I wanted to interview Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. I'm talking football, not finances, to say, how did you lead the SEC through COVID? The whole world was watching to see if there's going to be games. How did you do that? I wanted to have a big conversation because I'm not the only goal nerd that I know. I know a lot of other goal nerds who love goals because a goal is the fastest path between where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow. So I saw a lot of people saying, hey, we want a bigger conversation. That's why I started All It Takes Is a Goal.
So let's talk about different types of goals. There's good goals and bad goals. What makes a worthy goal?
Well, you know it's a worthy goal when you're willing to put time against it. Your calendar tells the truth. A goal without a calendar is just a wish, and it's hard to accomplish wishes. So if somebody said to me, Jon, I want to be a writer. People say that to you too. You've written books. People come up and say, oh, I want to write a book. And I go, okay, well, do you write before work? Do you write after work? Do you write on your lunch break? Do you write on your weekends? Do you stop watching Netflix to get a little writing done? And if you answer no to all those things, you might not really want to be a writer. So if you realize that, I'd go, can we rescue half an hour? Can we rescue an hour of your time where you could apply to that so you know it's a worthy goal when you're willing to sacrifice other things for it? I didn't start getting up at 5 a.m. to write my blog, Kirk, because I'm disciplined. Discipline, willpower, grit, they did nothing for me. I just had a blog that I loved more than sleep. I had a blog that I loved more than watching TV. I had a blog more than I loved scrolling Instagram. And all of a sudden, when I had a desire that was big enough, I was willing to change. Nobody changes just because. Nobody wakes up one day and goes, I'm just going to be more disciplined today just because. No, they find a desire that's so big, you're willing to pay the price for it. That's when you start to see a worthy goal.
Man, you are describing that's exactly right. The things that I know I get done, and people say, well, how do you do all these things? Well, the things that I actually accomplish are usually the things I just love doing anyway.
Here's what you need to know, Kirk. Joy is a wonderful alarm clock. Joy is a wonderful alarm clock. I got up at 4 a.m. the other day to go to a speaking event because I couldn't wait for those 45 minutes where I got to be on stage. I do my entire year to be on stage 50 times. I work really, really hard because those moments matter. So joy is a wonderful alarm clock. The trick to figuring out your career, your goal, whatever you want to call it is find something you love doing so much you do it for free, and then add the second step. Get so good at it, people pay you a lot of money for it. That's how you get to keep doing it. There's 2 steps. It's not just the first step. There's a lot of artists that would love to paint, but don't ever figure out how to get good enough to make it into a career. There's 2 steps. And once you find that joy, you're going to start to throw time against it, like throwing wood into a fire. And it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what's fun about goals. They develop their own momentum. The problem, Kirk, is people think a goal has to be miserable to count. So you meet people this time of year and they'll go, yeah, I'm going to try to get in shape. I'll go, what are you going to do? And they'll say, I'm going to run. I'll go, do you like running? They go, no, I hate it. I hate running. That's why I know it's good for me. And you're never going to run. But they don't think that walking with a friend counts or ballroom dancing counts or Zumba counts. And so you have to give yourself the permission to follow something you enjoy as you build a goal.
How do we know when to have those shoot for the stars kind of goals and when to go for the small, just do the next thing right in front of me, tiny things?
Imagine a line, and one end of it says overwhelming, and one says boring. You want to land in the middle, inspiring. Some people go, Jon, I'm gonna run the Ironman, and I'll go, you've never run before. Could you do a half marathon, a 10K, a 5K, even just a K? But they have this overwhelming goal because they think they have to go for it. Other people do it so small they're bored. So you're looking for a goal that stretches you a little bit and it's inspiring, but not so big that it's overwhelming. So don't say I want to lose 10 pounds. Say I want to lose the first 3, and I'm going to do that consistently and then let it grow. Versus going, I need some big, hairy, audacious goal. If you haven't written on a book for 5 years, don't say I'm going to write a whole chapter this weekend. No. Write a page. That's how you start small. Write a page. It's intimidating to write a chapter. Don't try to write a chapter. Write a page. And then you write your second page and your third page. So you don't run a marathon. You run half a mile. And you do that consistently until you've proved to yourself, you know what? I think I can do a whole mile. Let's go. You build it like building step by step by step.
I think you've just explained why I get so stressed with a goal that is, I want to change the world.
Of course.
It's just too big of a goal. That's a
You should feel stressed. You should feel stressed about that. That's bigger than Kirk. Like, so again, we as a culture say, if your goal doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. Because it's fun to say that. Like, people say terrible stuff online. Like, sometimes you got to jump off the cliff and grow wings on the way down. That's never how gravity works. And then we add God. I had a friend say to me, sometimes we're in a plane with God and we skydive out the back, and he looked back and goes, I was going to land this plane in like a month. Who told you to skydive? And we're jumping out the back like, I'm doing it for God. And God is like, I never told you to do that. So if somebody said to me, Jon, I want to start a coffee shop, you know what I'd say to him, Kirk? I'd say, have you ever worked at a coffee shop? Could you work at another one and get paid while you learn? Do you like people? And so that's what we have to learn as goal getters.
One of the questions that goes through my mind when I'm setting goals is, does God really want me to do this, or is this just me? Is this just something that I want? Because I want to be in the center of God's will, and maybe this stuff over here on this list I don't even need to worry about that stuff. How does the will of God figure into my goal setting?
Well, it's everything. I mean, you look at Proverbs, like he's desperate to give you wisdom. So I start from a place of going, okay, God, you're more creative than me. You're better at goals than me. You made the octopus. Like you're great. Like, can we sit down together and talk through this? And will you reveal that? Kirk, one of my prayers with God is I'll say, will you please make this stupid obvious? Like stupid obvious. And then I think he delights in that. He's the father that doesn't give you a rock or doesn't give you a serpent. He's so kind. So for me with goals, I'll go, here's things that I think are the desire of my heart, but guess what? You made my heart. You know better than me. So I rarely worry about God telling me like, whoa, Jon, you're too excited. There's too much desire. Kirk, the best part of our faith, we have the only God who doesn't say, kill your desires. We have the only God who doesn't say you have to detach yourself from feeling and emotion. No, he goes, I put those desires in you. Come swim in the deep end. Let's go. That's how I see where God comes in.